Welcome to C-Suite Blueprint Radio, conversations with communications strategy consultant and author Ed Barks and his guests. C-Suite Blueprint Radio serves as a practical resource for senior communications and government relations executives who counsel their C-suite leaders. Our goal? To help you achieve your business and public policy goals. Now, here's your host, Ed Barks.
Today I'm talking with Neil Foote of Foote Communications. Neil is also the president of the National Black Public Relations Society. The society has 400 plus members comprised of public relations administrators, media specialists, government relations directors, and communications professionals. Quoting from its mission, it strives to nurture, enlighten, and inform its membership about new technologies and techniques. Our goal is to empower our entrepreneurs and practitioners to network and succeed. Today's topic on C-Suite Blueprint Radio: how the heightened attention to social justice is affecting the communications field and those who work in it. Neil, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Ed. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure. Tell me in a general sense, how have you seen the landscape change for communicators in the past few months as these social justice issues have come to the fore?
Well, I think it's affected the industry in several different ways. One, on the issue of diversity and inclusion in the PR industry, that has certainly been heightened in our conversations about how do we better increase the diversity in those ranks, not only at the lowest levels, but particularly in the C-suite. We've encountered the conversations now about diversity, equity, inclusion as how best do we message these critical issues about social justice in America, both from a B2B standpoint and then from a B2C standpoint. How do companies themselves within best create conversations that embrace the diversity of their employees? So I've actually been engaged in a number of client work where I've been working with C-suite executives who are trying to better message their projects, their programs, and to better understand what's going on with their companies and how what's going on externally best impacts their businesses. So we're seeing a lot of uptick in this issue of how to address social justice in an authentic way, realizing that being uncomfortable about talking about this issue is kind of the norm now.
And how do you get to some of those solutions when you have views perhaps in the C-suite that are so entrenched over years and decades? That's got to be a difficult conversation at times.
Absolutely a difficult conversation, and one that in many of my conversations goes right to that point, as that, if you first accept that this is a difficult and uncomfortable conversation, then that's a good first step. The second part of it is for those corporate executives who have been on the fence about this issue, knowing that in the back of their minds, they need to do better about how they recruit, hire, and promote diverse employees to higher ranks, and no less within the C-suite or on the board level, or how better they market to diverse audiences. I think a lot of the conversations I've been having is saying, look, now is a wonderful time because, what we're seeing around the country, despite some of the violence that has taken place, I want to acknowledge that, but I also want to acknowledge the tremendous amount of nonviolent protests and the calls for awareness about our culture, our history, and the ability to create communities where we all get along much better, not only just neighbor to neighbor, but neighbor to police and police to community and communities engaging and embracing how differences are really part of the world we're living in, which again, I map back, Ed, to, well, what's that mean to me as a C-suite? Oh, guess what? This is a business issue. If my customers are consumed by this issue, then I need to understand what's motivating them and how does my brand relate to them? How do I best come up with messaging that shows that my company, my brands, my services, my products really are relevant and pertinent to their lives, and that we understand that we have a role of making their lives better if they can better relate to us as humans, as people, as companies that are really doing good things.
And these conversations at a heightened level really haven't been going on for all that long, what, maybe 2, 3, 4 months tops. Have you seen any evidence in that short period of time that hiring practices are already changing? Hiring and promotion practices, for that matter.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I certainly, between my emails and certainly my LinkedIn feed, yeah, I'm pleased to see the number of promotions of some of my good friends and others who I've just followed in the industry to get, some of the promotions that have been long overdue to that VP rank or that chief rank. Many of these roles that have come about for some of my colleagues have been in the area of diversity and equity. So I want to applaud their success and the progress for some of these companies to make those promotions. I also want to continue to encourage executives and C-suites to promote and expand the roles of diverse individuals into also operational activities that will allow them as diverse executives working side by side with other C-suite executives to make decisions that affect the overall company that also might include diversity and inclusion executives. So yes, some progress. I'm excited to see it. I think if that's a first step in how we can see some acceleration of getting people at the C-suite level, let's continue to do that. Let's now expand and look at those executives that could also contribute to all aspects of other kinds of business or divisional expertise.
Great. Thanks for the insight, Neil. And a quick reminder for our listeners to keep up with the latest in communications strategy and training, sign up for the Communications Community newsletter. Now, here's a special deal when you visit barkscom.com or the C-Suite Blueprint blog. When you join the communications community, you can get a free ebook copy of my brand new book, Reporters Don't Hate You, 100 plus amazing media relations strategies. Join the community today and get a free book in the bargain. Now we're back with Neil Foote of Foote Communications and the National Black Public Relations Society. Neil, how do you recommend a company spokesperson respond when, in the course of an interview on another subject, they are asked how their firm is advancing social justice issues?
I think my kind of 3 tips along those lines are: one, being as sincere as possible about what your company is doing. If you're doing, hopefully every company has some kind of project that they're doing that shows that they have been conscious of those issues that are now kind of exploding around the country in many different ways. But figuring out how best to address that issue on highlighting those things that they're doing, projecting those things that they plan to do that are in motion, showing transparency in the process, that if in fact they don't have a great record in those areas, that they have now taken action or are planning to take action, and that they're empowering and engaging with their employees at the C-suite level, the mid-tier levels, and the kind of entry levels of their organization, where they're having conversations with as many employees as possible and as many diverse employees as possible, not only in full group kind of company-wide meetings, but also in smaller groups and of course in one-on-one sessions. And I think the third part of that is to really take charge of the issue as an issue that's affecting our nation in a way that shows the power of why we live in this democracy, that the right to assemble and protest is a critical part of our Constitution, and that as a company, that your role as a C-suite executive or is to really make sure your company understands your customers, figures out ways to best communicate them, how best you're trying to align with some of their values and that they respect, and that you're doing all you can to keep tabs of that messaging, and that you're actively listening to not only your employees but your customers in a way that's going to help you become a more successful company in the months ahead.
And in what ways do communicators who are not of color need to grow in order to remain sensitive to these evolving attitudes?
This is a time to lean into understanding all that's going on. So I think it's several tier. Read as much as you can, not only the stories that are out there that are covering some of the stories that are taking place, but go one step further and look into the history. I mean, whatever city you're in, look into the history of race and social justice in those communities, whether that's looking in the archives of the newspapers or stories that have made, or books that may have been written about the community. And then most importantly, seek out, those conversations with friends and colleagues in the industry, certainly who are diverse, to have really exploratory conversations. My members across the country are engaged at all sorts of levels with activities that have been, working with colleagues in all sorts of industries to foster conversations about how we embrace diversity and inclusion in our lives, how we better understand those aspects of our lives, and find those resources that can help us feel more comfortable so that we understand better about what's going on. So part of that ultimately, Ed, is stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit, but that's okay. That's really okay, because I think we're in an environment where if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to accept that maybe your views may not be completely aligned with someone else, then gosh, if we can get that far down the road and get people in the room to have those kinds of conversations, I think we come out of this so much better.
So it sounds like the National Black Public Relations Society could be a resource in certainly in cities where there are chapters.
Absolutely. Certainly cities where there are chapters, certainly where there's cities where we don't have chapters, they're probably part of the activity in the last several months is just making those connections with either individuals or organizations who are seeking counsel to with other Black public relations professionals. Part of one of the big efforts that we're working on with Beepers is making sure our individuals, particularly those who may have small firms, that they get access to opportunities and working with some of the larger firms as subcontractors, or at least get a chance to bid on bigger business, because many of the individuals and our members are really professionals who have anywhere from 10 to 15 years of experience in the business, either in some form of communications, who are so well experienced that they can lend their expertise to any kind of project that's out there. So we'd love to be a resource. We also have a career board. So if you're looking for diverse executives, you can always post your job there. So if you need a conversation, I can be a point of access for those conversations, or through the website to learn more, mbprs.org, to really, again, help us learn more, connect more, and become a better society out of all of this.
Neil, any final thoughts in the 60 seconds or so we have left?
Yeah, it's a scary and anxious time for so many of us, as we were talking a little bit about before, Ed. But I think my glass half full approach to this world is that we are learning a lot about each other. We're reconnecting with our friends, our families in new ways, and we're learning that perhaps the value of communicating more than ever with our colleagues, our friends, and in terms of business, our customers. Now it puts us in a way that we have to be that much more creative, that much more innovative. And I think that's a good thing. I think, this is a struggle for many of us, but I think out of it, we will learn how to be more efficient, do some things more innovatively and creatively. And I'm seeing some kind of new opportunities that will also come out of all of this. So I appreciate the time, Ed, that you've given me today to kind of chat about these subjects.
My pleasure, Neil. Thank you. And remind us one more time, if you would, what's the best way for listeners to get in touch with you? And Beepers, which we should tell folks that may not be familiar, is the Black Public Relations Society. How can folks best get in touch with you again?
Sure. Certainly the website is nbprs.org. Or you can always, and there's an email on that you could use, but you can always email me at Neil, Neil, at neilfoote.org. neilfoote.com. So that's Neil at neilfoote.com.
Good. And I'll spell it. And I know I've got this right. You confirm. Neil is Neil and Foote is Foote.
That is correct.
Good. Well, thanks to Neil Foote of Foote Communications and president of the National Black Public Relations Society for joining us today on C-Suite Blueprint Radio. This is Ed Barks. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to C-Suite Blueprint Radio with Ed Barks. Check out the show notes on the C-Suite Blueprint blog. While you're there, comment on this episode by sharing your thoughts in the Leave a Reply box. To learn how Ed can help you reach your business and public policy goals, visit barkscom.com. That's BARKSCOMM.com. Tune in again soon here on C-Suite Blueprint Radio.